Every December, people rush into new goals and resolutions, but without reflection, all they do is repeat last year's patterns with a fresh date at the top of the calendar. We skip reflection because we feel behind, but pausing isn't falling behind. It's how you line up your next sprint. Reflection doesn't waste time, it saves it. This is the same 20-minute process I use every year to reset my focus and make sure the next year starts with intention, not to overwhelm. So today, Adam and I are walking you through how to perform your own year-end audit, what worked, what didn't, and what's next. Grab a notebook because by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear plan to step confidently into 2026. Adam, how you doing?
What is up, Ben? Super excited to be back on another brand new episode of
The Pursuit of Progress podcast.
Yes, sir. Well, only a few weeks left in 2025, already a quarter century through. And man, I'm excited just to have a few episodes to share with our audience on intentionality with kind of the end of the year. We did one last week that talked a little bit more just about setting up some rocks, some larger sized goals, just some motivation to finish the year with momentum. And today we're kind of talking about a little bit different approach, which is the power of pause. And this is something that actually my girlfriend Courtney right now, she's reading one of Mel Robbins' books and really is enjoying it and might even pick it up and read it afterwards. I forgot what the name of it is. It's the newest one that she came out with, but just want to jump right into this one with you, Ben, and just kind of share first off the power of pause and what Mel Robbins means by this. Mel, she often says, you can't grow if you don't stop. And that single sentence is the backbone of this entire episode. Reflection is a growth multiplier. It lets your brain's reticular activating system filter out that noise and start spotting the patterns that matter. So when you slow down long enough to think, you see the truth about what's been driving you and also what's been draining you. We actually have done a few different episodes over the past 2 years on the RAS, the reticular activating system. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about that specifically, shoot us a direct message and I can share that episode with you. A lot of value behind the reticular activating system that we're not going to talk through in much depth today, but definitely worth checking out. But a couple more things before I want to shoot this back over to you, Ben. But this progress without pause, it's just motion at that point. You can move all year long and still end up in the exact same place. We talked about this last week too. People talk about losing 20 pounds. Well, they lose that same 20 pounds every year. They don't have that momentum in place. And that's what I think for a lot of us, a lot of people, that's what kills a lot of the dreams and just never gets them past maybe that first base. But progress, I think, is so important because when we plan anything for 2026, it's important that we first take a moment. We stop, we breathe, we write down what stands out, the wins, maybe some of the mistakes, the lessons. Growth starts in that pause, not the push.
And so do you feel like the pause is so important because it gives us an opportunity to reflect back, but then also be a little bit more intentional about where we're headed? Maybe it's a time to really do some self-reflection. I think that I think that a lot of people don't do the pause, and I'm just thinking out loud here. I think part of that is because it can be a little bit uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to understand we're saying pause, not stop. So a
Yeah.
pause could be something even as minimal as being intentional where next week on Wednesday, instead of taking an hour lunch break, you're going to find a place. Hopefully it's nice weather. If it is, for example, going outside somewhere, not having your phone on you and just spending an hour, maybe not in silence, but maybe you'll hear some noises around you, maybe finding a park somewhere just where you can truly reflect and pause and just kind of, self-reflect, think through what you've done over the past year that's been great. What wins have you had? What loss or lessons have you had? Just pausing and reflecting is super duper
It's
important.
so interesting and really pursuing quality. Right now, I'm really pursuing better sleep and quality sleep. And I've always gone to bed, not necessarily on time, but being more intentional with that, kind of pausing and making sure that I'm getting to bed on time. I now have a watch where I uh, review and analyze my sleep metrics from the night before because I do want to be more intentional. Um, so that's great. You said this at the top of the podcast. We're already a quarter of the way through the 2000s. I mean, that is mind blowing. You ever think about that?
Yeah, I like to think of life sometimes in like decades, like kind of like chapters of life. But then this
Hmm.
is the first time where instead of a 10-year period of time, I'm thinking about, a quarter of a century. And for us, we were just getting ready to graduate from high school. We were
Yeah.
seniors in high school and just thinking through how 25 years seems like so long ago, yet it's gone by pretty dang fast.
I know it has. You and I at the gym this morning were talking about Running Man. There was the original Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger that came out in the '80s, and then they're doing a remake right now. And I think the original came out around 42 years ago. It was around 40 years ago. And I made the comment to you, like looking back from 2025 back 40 years, and then looking ahead 40 years, that would put us into 2065. And so when you think about it like that is like, oh my gosh. And Alex Harmozy mentions that you were talking about a lot of people repeat the same patterns. And one of his quotes that he references is that a lot of people just live the same 6 months over and over and over. They'll live the same 6 months for 50 years.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say the majority of people. I think the older you get, the more comfortable and maybe timid for making legitimate change in your life. It becomes harder and
Mhm.
harder. And I mean, I totally get that. But I think that's one of the reasons why people just never get out of that rut or out of that comfort zone. And I think the
Yeah.
more times you've repeated that same 6 months, the harder it eventually becomes to ever make a change.
And I think that's why you always have to embrace being uncomfortable. A lot in this world right now is changing. AI, for example. I'm not Mr. Tech. I'm not Mr. Tech literate, but I am really getting in the habit of using this every single day, even though it does make me uncomfortable and I don't know if I'm using it correctly, because I know that this is the future. And we have to train ourselves to constantly be uncomfortable and kind of welcome that into our life. Otherwise, you do get complacent. You do get stuck. Well, let's go ahead and move on to step number two here. This is the three-step year-end audit. Now that we've talked about the pause and how important that is, now it's also important to reflect and evaluate an audit. The framework is simple: stop, start, continue. So step one is you want to stop. What drained your energy this year? Maybe you said yes too often, scrolled too much, or started your mornings in chaos instead of calm. I've been there for all three of those. Step two, start. What's a new habit that could unlock your next level? It might be a daily power list, 10 minutes of journaling, or a short walk before opening your inbox. And then step three, think about this as continue. What's already working that deserves more energy? Keep the routines, relationships, and disciplines that move the needle forward for you. Write one thing under each column. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Again, just going back to that awareness. Awareness is the first step towards intentional growth. And I especially think the stop one is just so critical. And especially for me, like saying yes too often. We've talked about that before on podcasts, how we want to be able to help people, we want to be able to serve others. But when I get in the habit of saying yes too often, it does bring so much stress, chaos into my life professionally and also personally.
Hmm. Only thing I'd like to add to that, just for this three-step process, is for anything that you guys are choosing to do next year, or even things that you're maybe currently doing that you're just going to continue to do next year, try and think of a way that every major moving part of your business can have some form of a measurable, meaning a KPI, a key performance indicator. Because what happens so often for a lot of us is we work really hard at something, and yes, we feel very fulfilled because we are working hard, but it might just be steering the boat in the wrong direction. So sometimes, meaning, the reason I'm bringing this up is you need to stop doing things that actually might be enjoyable. Maybe you feel like they're helping your business grow, but are they really? Are they actually putting more dollars into your bank account? Or
Yeah.
are they maybe the things you enjoy doing? Like maybe it's grabbing coffee with clients every week. You enjoy doing it, you
Mhm.
feel fulfilled, but is that time maybe better spent somewhere else? Is that something that you might be able to reflect on and stop because it's draining a lot of your energy, but maybe not putting a lot of profit into your business? Just kind of thinking through some of that too, because stop sometimes can be for things that are still enjoyable. It's not just always the painful things.
And I know that you've talked about this in the past, but and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you've talked about how important it is to really understand and know what that hourly rate is
Hmm.
for yourself, because that will then give you some guidance on what are the tasks that you need to do, and if it's below that hourly rate, then those are the tasks, items, chores, what have you, that you should really consider handing off.
Definitely. Yep. That's a big one. Yeah, we did that on a couple episodes ago, guys. So if that's kind of speaking your language, maybe an area that you're trying to improve on, just shoot either of us a DM or just scroll back a couple
Yeah.
episodes. You can find more content on that. Well, let's kind of wrap this whole thing up now with a pretty bow and kind of give it back to you guys. So the third big part of this that we haven't talked about yet is how important it is to turn this insight into actual action. So insight without action, that's just interesting at best. Once you've listed what you want to stop, start, and continue, the next thing you need to do then is schedule these. Pick one of each and put it on your calendar this week, not next year, but this week. And if it's not scheduled, it's not real. Just really think through that. If it's not on your calendar, it's not getting done consistently. John Maxwell, again, one of Ben's and my favorite OGs, he's been around for 40 plus years. He calls this the law of intentionality because growth doesn't happen automatically. It happens when you make time for it on purpose. So if you guys can commit to just one stop, one start, and one continue before the year ends, you're going to walk into 2026, not just with resolutions, but with systems, and systems are what create results that last.
Love that. You're gonna have the passion, you're gonna have the purpose, you're gonna have the momentum, the systems. When January 1st rolls around, whoo, whoo, what do they call that? Mid-season form?
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna be in mid-season form on the 1st of January. Well, that brings us to step number 4, which is close. Remember, you don't need brand new goals, but you do need better awareness. Most people are chasing more when what they really need is focus. Reflection gives you the focus. It tells you what's actually worth carrying into your next season. So take that 20 minutes, do the audit, and get clear before 2026 begins. If you want a head start, Adam has created a year end audit worksheet that is currently on adamsellsdenver.com. Go into the guide section and you can find it there, or drop us a line and we can book a free 30-minute strategy session to help you map out your first quarter of 2026. Because remember, clarity creates confidence and confidence creates progress.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Pursuit of Progress. We're coming up on our 100th episode here in a couple weeks. Clarity is power, and reflection is how you find it. So don't rush into 2026 just to repeat 2025. Stop, audit, adjust, and then accelerate. I'm Adam Lang with my co host, Ben Adams. And as always, keep pursuing progress.
Right. Episode 100 coming up soon. Love you guys.
See ya.